This was a disaster foretold. And the path towards this disaster was laid by Donald Trump himself. What Trump has achieved is actually the counterproductive of what he wanted to achieve.
The Arab monarchs in the region, they have US bases for security reasons. But during the war, the US was not really able to give any security protection or such for any of these countries.
You look at Iran's response, yes, enhance the military cost by attacking American bases in the region, shut down the Strait of Hormuz by enhancing the economic cost on the United States and the global economy, and continue to pound Israel. This is what they did. Okay, in Islamabad, they didn't reach any breakthrough, but that doesn't mean that the diplomatic process has collapsed.
Over the past few weeks, West Asia has witnessed a dramatic and dangerous shift. What was once a long running shadow conflict between the United States, Israel, and Iran has now erupted into direct large scale confrontation. On February 28th, Washington and Tel Aviv launched Operation Epic Fury, a sweeping military offensive targeting Iran's nuclear, military, and economic infrastructure. In the days that followed, Iran responded with missile and drone strikes across the region, hitting Israeli cities, US bases in the Gulf, and expanding the conflict well beyond its original front lines. But perhaps the most consequential moment came with the killing of Ali Khamenei, an unprecedented development that has reshaped Iran's leadership and raised serious questions about how far this conflict could go. A temporary ceasefire brokered earlier this month briefly raised hopes of de escalation, but with talks now stalled and both sides holding firm on their demands, that truce appears increasingly fragile. So, where does the conflict stand today? What exactly has happened over the past 6 weeks? And why has diplomacy failed to keep pace with escalation? I'm Sharmada Venkata Subramanian, and this episode of Global Faultlines, we discuss all these questions and more with Stanley Johnny, the Hindu's international affairs editor. Welcome back to another episode of Global Faultlines. A lot has happened clearly since we last spoke about Iran.
We took a break from Global Faultlines in between, but we were covering the Iran war as part of In Focus. Now we are back, taking a deep dive. We intend to take a deep dive into what happened over the past 40 plus days.
Yes. On February 28th, the United States launched Operation Epic Fury, describing it as a preemptive strike. Based on what we know about the events leading up to it, does the claim of preemption hold up? And in terms of scale and escalation, how effective was the operation? Did it achieve its objectives, especially when it comes to Iran's nuclear infrastructure?
So, first of all, it's now called Operation Epic Failure.
Right.
Or it has become Operation Epic Blockade. No, because now you blockade the Strait of Hormuz and I will also blockade. I blockade the Gulf of Oman.
Yeah.
So you have two blockades now. So the short answer is that no, the United States has not met any of its objectives. Any of its objectives. Neither the United States nor the Israelis.
Right.
And they themselves are saying that. You just look at the statement issued by Yair Lapid, the main opposition party in the Knesset, the Israeli parliament. So he says Israel hasn't faced this kind of a strategic setback in its history.
Yeah.
And you look at what the Americans themselves are saying. So when they went to the war, what were the objectives? I mean, one of the main problems with this war was that there was no clear set of objectives.
Yeah.
But still, if you look at the statements made by Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, or President Donald Trump, on the day the war began. The war began on February 28th with the assassination of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Trump, by the way, calls him Khomeini. Khomeini died in 1989. But by the assassination of Ayatollah Khamenei and a host of other leaders, the war began on February 28th. And on that day, Trump said that he was going to destroy Iran's navy, he was going to destroy Iran's missile capabilities, he wanted to destroy Iran's air force, and he wanted to destroy Iran's nuclear program. And he also wanted regime change. He told the Iranians that this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity.
Yeah.
He told them that once we stop, you go and take over your institutions. And he couldn't stop it for 39 days.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Trump also, I think on March 10th or March 6th, excuse me, on the 7th day of the war, he ruled out any kind of talks with the Iranians. He said he demanded unconditional surrender. That's what he wanted. And what did he do? He wanted a deal.
Yeah.
He announced a ceasefire on April 8th, April 8th, the Iranian time, right? April 7th, American time. So, I mean, you look at the 39 days of bombing. The ceasefire was announced on the 40th day
Yeah.
of the war. You look at the 39 days of the bombing. And now there are reports. Wall Street Journal ran a story just a couple of days ago saying that Iran's nuclear program had survived. We talked about it when we discussed the June war.
Yes.
When they went to the June war in June 2025, after the war, Trump said that he had obliterated Iran's nuclear program. And then in Jan 2026, he wanted Iran to destroy its nuclear program,
Right.
the same nuclear program which he obliterated 8 months ago,
Yeah.
isn't it? Now, let's look at the objectives set by the Trump administration and what is the ground reality. If Iran's navy has been completely destroyed, obliterated by the American attack, why the Strait of Hormuz is still closed?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a commonsensical question, right? If
Yes.
Iran doesn't have any capabilities whatsoever, why the strait is still closed? Why nobody is sending their ships through the strait? Forget about the commercial vessels. Let's say that commercial vessels may not be able to pass through it because the Iranians may have planted sea mines.
Yeah.
Why the warships, why the great American warships are not going through the Strait of Hormuz? Why the British are not sending their ships? Why the French are not sending their ships?
Yeah.
And you look at the Iranian nuclear facilities, no? One of the main demands of the United States now is that Iran has to hand over its enriched uranium, which is apparently some 500 kilograms of or 450 kilograms of 60%
Yeah.
enriched uranium. So they have to hand it over. And they should also commit to the Americans that they will not enrich uranium anymore. Or rather, the Americans have asked for a moratorium on uranium enrichment capabilities. So the obvious question, again, the commonsensical question that I would like to ask is that if Iran's nuclear program is entirely destroyed or obliterated, why the Americans are asking the Iranians to shut enrichment program?
Yeah.
Isn't it? So you look at it from any point of view. From an Israeli point of view, this has become a complete disaster. We will talk about it later.
Yes.
But the United States has not met its objectives. So that's why the United States is now seeking a diplomatic settlement because they could not meet their objectives through 39 days of bombing.
Right.
So they wanted to meet. They wanted basically an exit that would justify the war, that would also allow them to tell the world that, okay, we have got something. That's what they wanted to do. And now, how did we reach here? This is a very interesting question.
Yeah.
There was a nuclear deal, right, in 2015.
Yes.
The Obama administration had signed a nuclear deal. And who destroyed the nuclear deal? It was Donald Trump
Yes.
during his first term in 2018, in May 2018.
Yes.
And when Donald Trump destroyed the nuclear deal, the Iranians were 100% compliant with the terms of the nuclear agreement.
Yes.
And what were the terms of the nuclear agreement? It's very interesting. The Iranians had remarkably scuttled their nuclear program, scaled it back.
Yeah.
They were enriching uranium only up to 3.67 percentage purity. So 3.67, and now in a sense, until last year they were enriching up to 60%. So 3.67% was nothing.
Yeah.
And all of Iranian nuclear facilities were open for international inspection. IAEA was there in Iran,
Yes.
but IAEA doesn't have any access to Iran's nuclear plants today.
Yeah.
So it was Trump who destroyed the nuclear agreement in 2018, and then he demanded the Iranians to come and negotiate with him again, which they refused.
Yes.
And after Trump was voted out of power, Biden had an opportunity to revive the nuclear deal, but he didn't. He had appointed a special envoy. They had held some indirect talks in Geneva, but they didn't reach any agreement.
Yeah.
Right? And then Trump returned to power.
Yes.
And in June 2025, the Israelis started the war. Donald Trump joined the war. He bombed the nuclear plants, and then he claimed that he had destroyed and obliterated Iran's nuclear program. But then in February, they started the war all over again.
Right.
So this was a disaster.
Yeah.
This was a disaster foretold. And the path towards this disaster was laid by Donald Trump himself. So at every turn, people had warned him that you are actually walking into a trap. But he refused to listen to any of them, right? And then he is now in the middle of a deep crisis, and he doesn't have any easy way out of this.
Right. And we're going to discuss a lot more in detail about everything that you just mentioned. But we have to address the assassination of Iran's former supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. How did that alter Iran's leadership overnight? And what do we know about the current supreme leader, Mustafa Khamenei? And more broadly, how did the assassination of a sitting supreme leader alter Iran's internal political dynamics as well as the overall trajectory of this war?
So I have mentioned this earlier. I had an interesting conversation with an IRGC officer
Yes.
when I was in Tehran, 2022. And I was surprised that he was so critical of the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
Right.
And then he said that it was because of the stupid fatwa. This is the word he used.
Right.
I mean, this was an off the record conversation.
Right.
It was because of the stupid fatwa that Iran doesn't have the bomb. I mean, Ayatollah Khamenei was the man, all said and done. Okay, you might hate him, you might love him, you might adore him, follow him, you might dislike him, depending on where you stand. That's fine, right? But all said and done, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was the man who issued a fatwa against nuclear bombs.
Yes. Yeah.
And his position was that Iran should not make a bomb. He even said that the bomb was un-Islamic. And IRGC was not particularly happy about this fatwa.
Right.
That's one thing. Secondly, you look at Iran's political structure. See, Iran is, many people believe, I mean, it's the clergy system. The Ayatollah will come and give you an order and everybody will listen to you. That's not like that.
Right.
Iran's political system, if you follow it closely, it's a very fractious political system, but it's also a very agile system. Yes, the supreme leader is the head of the state. He is also a religious leader, but Iran has an elected parliament. It has an elected president, and the president runs the day-to-day affairs of the government.
Right.
And all the bills are being discussed in parliament. And then you have the guardianship, you have the guardian council, and then you have the expediency council. You have multiple councils which are important, which hold sway in the whole political system, right? And among the politicians, you have the principalists, and then you have the moderates, and then you have the reformers.
Right.
And then if you look at Iran's security architecture, you have the IRGC and you have the regular military. You have the clergy, you have the civilian leadership. So it is a mosaic style political structure that Iran has.
Right.
So IRGC is a very important pillar of the system. Okay? But what is happening now, after the war broke out, after the assassination of Khamenei, is that IRGC is emerging as the most powerful pillar of the Iranian state.
Right.
Because you look at what happened on February 28th, they killed Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. They also killed the military chief.
Yes.
And then the defense council chief, Shamkhani, was killed. I mean, apparently Shamkhani was killed.
Yeah.
And then a few days later, Ali Larijani was killed. Larijani was he was a civilian politician,
Yes.
basically, and he was the head of the Supreme National Security Council. So almost all these top leaders were killed. And in June, they had killed the IRGC commander as well. And now, who's heading IRGC? Wahidi. And Wahidi is seen as a hardliner, a military strategist who is not willing to make any compromises. And he is the one who is in charge of the war.
Right.
He is the commander-in-chief, Ahmad Wahidi. And then you look at the other forces, other figures now who are, the influential figures in Iran system. Larijani was assassinated by the Israelis, and then he was replaced by Sol Khadr. And Sol Khadr is an IRGC man.
Right.
Larijani was a civilian politician, right?
Yeah.
Shamkhani was killed, Larijani was killed. So of the three, the powerful trio of Iran's pre-war political system, the only one who is remaining is Ghalibaf.
Right.
Ghalibaf is the speaker of the parliament. He is basically an IRGC guy. Okay? And the supreme leader himself, Mujtaba Khamenei. So Mujtaba also he was part of IRGC during the Iran-Iraq war when he was a teenager.
Right.
He was part of IRGC, and then he had maintained very close ties with IRGC. And Mujtaba is now the supreme leader. He lost his father. He lost his relatives. He himself was attacked on February 28th. He is now leading the country.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And what you are witnessing now is that the IRGC is emerging as the most important pillar of the Iranian society. They are tightening their grip on the Iranian society under Mujtaba Khamenei's leadership. So what happened after February 28th is that Iran is now ruled by, or Iran is now tightly controlled by IRGC and other top generals who were not as powerful as they are today before the war or before June 2025, right? I mean, it's a very interesting transition that Iran is going through. Trump had said that, yes, there was a regime change, etc., in Iran. I mean, that was comedy. But what actually happened is that Iran hardliners have tightened their grip on Iran society.
Right.
Civilian politicians have been sidelined.
Yeah.
And then IRGC is now in the driving seat. They are driving the bus.
Right.
That's what we have witnessed in Iran. So, what Trump has achieved is actually the counterproductive of what he wanted to achieve.
Yes. So let's talk a bit more about Operation Epic Fury, which reportedly involved multiple strikes across Iran. So, can you talk to us about the strategic logic behind attacking both nuclear facilities like Fordo and Natanz,
Natanz,
and also economic hubs like the Kharg Island? So,
yeah.
what is the logic behind, you know, simultaneously attacking these different varieties of targets? And how much of it has actually been deformed and what actually
Yeah.
stands today?
So, New York Times published two long articles about how Trump led the country to the war.
Mhm.
So apparently Mossad had solved this theory that if you carry out a decapitation strike, the Iranian regime would collapse.
Right.
So Trump's expectation was that when they killed Khamenei and others, either the Iranian state would collapse
Mhm.
or a new crop of leadership would emerge who would be willing to do business with the
The
United
United
States
States.
out of
Right.
fear of getting killed or attacked by the
Right.
Americans.
Right.
This is what happened in Venezuela on
Yes.
January 3rd.
Yes.
Trump went in, or the US troops went in, they attacked, they kidnapped the president, and they left the country, leaving Venezuela in the hands of Delcy Rodriguez,
Mhm.
who who has been more than willing to cooperate with Americans.
Yes.
But there is no Delcy in Iran.
Yeah.
And Iran is, I mean, you should understand two things. One is it's a civilization state.
Yes.
Iran has, I mean, every country's behavior is shaped by its history,
Mhm.
right? History, geography, there are multiple actors. And in Iran's case, I mean, these guys used to run the Persian Empire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we have to consider that as one of the factors, right?
Right.
I'm not saying that since they were the Persian Empire today they are very powerful. No, that's not my argument is. My argument is that when you make an objective analysis of Iran's response, you should consider this as a factor.
Right.
These guys used to run the Persian
Right.
Empire.
Yeah.
They have a great civilization behind them,
Mm.
right? So you go and kill their leader, who's also the spiritual leader of millions of Shia people,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then you expect them to fold and make a compromise. That's not a serious argument.
Yeah.
But apparently, that's what was told by the world's greatest intelligence agency, Mossad, isn't it? So in the conversation which the New York Times had published, which was, I mean, it's stunning because someone who was present in the room himself had leaked this conversation to New York Times. I don't know who did that, but J.D. Vance was there, Marco Rubio was there,
Mhm.
Pete Hegseth was there.
Yeah.
So J.D. Vance is telling Trump that this is a bad idea, but I would still support your decision. Marco Rubio says that regime change is unlikely, but it's possible that the United States can destroy Iran's missile capabilities. And Pete Hegseth backs him. And the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, the highest ranking military officer in the United States,
Mhm.
he says that this is standard Israeli operational procedure because they will always try to drag you into the war.
Yeah.
He warned Trump.
Right.
American military warned Trump against this. But Trump still decided to go in because he thought that there would either be a state collapse in Iran or there would be state behavioral change in Iran.
Right.
That's what he expected. But what happened was exactly the opposite.
Mhm.
So Iran survived the
Yeah.
initial decapitation strike. And then Iran retaliated,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Iran retaliated in a way for which the United States was not prepared.
Right.
I mean, it's very obvious. The United States was prepared to protect Israel.
Yes.
I mean, they had sent two aircraft carriers, both Ford and Abraham
Yeah.
Lincoln,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they had moved their THAAD air defense system, etc., etc. But they were not prepared basically to protect their own bases in the Persian Gulf.
Yes.
And then the Americans realized and the Israelis realized that their initial push had collapsed.
Yeah.
Okay? Then what they did was to escalate. So they tried to escalate, they tried to find a way out by escalating the conflict.
Right.
So in the second stage of the war, that's when the Americans started attacking different infrastructure
Mhm.
facilities. I mean, basically for Israel is bombed an oil depot outside Tehran. They
Yes.
also bombed the South Parts gas field.
Yeah.
And the Trump administration, the Americans bombed Kharg Island,
Yes.
basically
Yeah.
what Trump called military infrastructure in Kharg Island. Then what they tried to do was to enhance their bombing campaign to punish Iran because they knew that the Iranian state was not collapsing. That window was closed on February 28th itself.
Right.
So then their focus has shifted from regime change to punishing the regime.
Right.
Israel clearly wanted to weaken Iran,
Mm-hmm.
destroy Iran's economic base,
Yeah.
destroy Iran's military base so that Iran would be a failed state. This is what Israel wanted,
Right.
right? So the Americans basically let the Israelis drive the bus.
Right.
So this is what they tried to do. But the problem here is that the United States did not want to continue to fight the war
Mm-hmm.
because the Americans knew that if they got stuck in the war, then Trump might end up sending troops to Iran
Right.
because there were speculations about Trump sending troops.
Yeah.
People like Lindsey Graham were saying that, okay, send your boys to Karg Island and capture the island like we captured the Japanese island in during the Second World War.
Right.
It's not that easy. I
Yeah.
mean, to
Yeah.
capture the island, you need to first to go into the Persian Gulf.
Yeah.
How will you go into the Persian Gulf? You will have to go through the Strait of Hormuz, which
Yes.
is under the Iranian blockade,
Yes.
or you will have to land in Saudi Arabia and cross the sea, what, 200 kilometers?
Yes.
And even if you take over the island, then that is just 15 kilometers from the Iranian shore. You will come under Iranian fire.
Yeah.
I mean, this is standard understanding, right? I'm not a defense expert.
Yeah.
I'm a student of geopolitics, but even I understand that taking over Karg Island is not going to be easy.
Yes. Yeah.
But this is what the Americans were talking about. But anyway, Trump did not have any other easy options but to continue bombing.
Right.
And that's what he tried to do. So he wanted to punish the Iranians. The Israelis wanted state collapse in Iran. So they started attacking different centers, infrastructure, apartment complexes, of course, military targets as well.
Mm-hmm.
But did it have any serious impact? The Iranians continue to retaliate.
Yes.
Even on day 39, they attacked Israel,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So on day 6th, March 7th, the IDF had issued a statement saying that they had destroyed 80% of Iran's and anti-aircraft system and 60% of Iran's missiles.
Mm.
This is in the March first week.
Yeah.
And then in April, what we saw is that Iranians shooting down multiple American aircraft.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So if 80% of Iran's anti-aircraft system were destroyed in March first week, how are the Iranians shooting down this, highly advanced American aircraft? It's a mystery to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone explain to me, please. So, it's very interesting. So, despite the American-Israeli bombing, I think Iran maintained its attack capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
They also maintained limited, but still effective defense capabilities.
Right.
So, that left Mr. Trump with no good options
Right.
but to seek a deal. So, basically, why did he attack them? Because he thought that he can punish them by targeting civilian infrastructure, forcing the Iranians to make concessions and make a deal.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, do you remember that tweet he sent out?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
That expletive-ridden tweet. We can't read that out
Yes.
because we work for the Hindu. That shows his desperation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's where Trump is now.
Right. And also on the other side, Iran's response has also been wide ranging and in some cases even audacious with multiple strikes on cities like Tel Aviv and coordinated attacks on US bases across the Gulf, including Qatar. So, what is the strategy behind Iran's attack on all these regions? What do we know about their strategic move?
It's very evident from day one.
Mm-hmm.
Because on February 28th, what the Iranians did, in 45 minutes, they started their retaliatory strike.
Right.
So they attacked Israel, and they also attacked on day one, they started attacking American bases in the region.
Mm-hmm.
And we were scanning wire stories, looking at what is happening, looking at the statements issued by the Iranians, etc., etc. So we spotted the difference between how Iran responded on June 12, 2025 and February 28, 2026. On June 12th, during the June War, the Iranians responded by attacking Israel.
Right.
They never attacked the Gulf countries.
Right.
They never attacked the American bases.
Mm-hmm.
They attacked the US base in Qatar only after the United States joined the war, but that was a nominal attack. Apparently, they had let the Qataris know that we were going to do this.
Right.
And then Trump announced a ceasefire. Right? This was on 21st of June 2025.
Right.
But this time, on day one, the Iranians started attacking American bases in the region.
Yes.
So what did Iran want to do? Iran clearly wanted to swiftly regionalize the war. And this is what the Iranians had threatened to do.
Right.
They said that this time, if you are going to start the war, all your bases in the Persian Gulf region will be our targets.
Right.
And some people refused to believe this because they thought that if Iran started attacking, let's say, the American base in Saudi Arabia or in Qatar or in the UAE, Iran is going to anger, upset its Arab neighbors. So Iran would not do that. That's what many people thought. They were naive
Right.
because the Iranians realized that they were facing an existential challenge.
Right.
President Trump and Netanyahu, they want regime change. They wanted to finish off the Islamic Republic. So the Iranians did not wait this time.
Right.
So they attacked the Israelis. They attacked American bases across the region, not only in the region, but also they attacked the American, radar systems in Jordan,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And then they shut the Strait of Hormuz. So you can see this three-pronged approach from the Iranians.
So was it a deliberate shift towards a more multi-front war doctrine?
Exactly. They wanted to regionalize the war,
Right.
one. And they also wanted to basically inflict an economic cost on the global economy because
Right.
they knew that that's what Trump's Achilles heel is.
Mhm.
Because the domestic pressure will start mounting up.
Yeah.
Because Trump came to power blasting all the former wars, right?
Mhm.
He said that he would end the forever wars.
Yeah.
J.D. Vance became J.D. Vance after opposing the Iraq war.
Yes.
He said, I am an Iraq war veteran. I served in Iraq. We lost a lot of American soldiers, etc., etc. And he also wrote the book, his memoir. And then J.D. Vance is now what? He is walking around defending the war.
Yeah.
So both Trump and J.D. Vance, so they came to power attacking America's forever wars, promising a new beginning, and then Trump led the United States to this war. So the Iranians knew that Trump cannot sustain this because if the economic pain continues to mount, then Trump will come under pressure.
Right.
That's why in the initial days they shut the Strait of Hormuz.
Yes.
And the closure still remains intact.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? IRGC released drone footage just 2 days ago, basically showing how they were monitoring the strait. And the strait, as we discussed earlier, at its narrowest point is just 35 kilometers wide.
Yes.
So the Iranians can send even long-range drones to attack ships.
Yeah.
So you will find no insurers. So there is no easy way to militarily reopen the strait.
Yes.
Right? There is no way.
Yes.
So the Iranians did. They basically they started, and some of their attacks were highly effective. For example, the drone attack in Kuwait. Apparently, the American base in Kuwait has been completely damaged. The Al Udeid base in Qatar has also taken repeated hits. New York Times ran a story saying that 13 bases in the region, American bases in the region, are uninhabitable now. And most of the American troops were moved out of these bases. And the United States also suffered a lot of material losses, right? I mean, they lost 3 F-15s in Kuwait, which the Pentagon said because of friendly fire.
Yeah.
And they lost the fuel tankers too. They lost one fuel tanker and one got damaged in Iraq, which the Pentagon said is because of accidental fire.
Right.
And one of their aircraft carriers had to withdraw from combat because of what Pentagon said laundry fire.
Right.
And then the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia was attacked twice. They lost an AWACS airplane, which is a highly advanced plane,
Yeah.
right? And they lost multiple fuel tankers because, if you look at New York Times stories, at least 5 fuel tankers were damaged by direct Iranian hit. And then they lost an F-15. And they lost an A-10,
Right.
one over the Persian Gulf region and one over Isfahan in Iran. So you look at the material losses, no? I mean, it's worth billions of dollars. And they also lost this THAAD radar systems in Jordan, in the UAE, and in Qatar.
Right.
Multiple missile defense radar systems. So the Iranians were pretty effective. That's why many people say that they were provided intelligence by the Russians.
Right.
So that's how they could carry out such focused attacks on American bases and assets in the region. It could be possible. You could always find the invisible hand of Vladimir Putin. But you look at Iran's response, yes, enhance the military cost by attacking American bases in the region, shut down the Strait of Hormuz by enhancing the economic cost on the United States and the global economy, and continue to pound Israel. This is what they did.
Right.
Yeah, I think they were to a certain extent successful in their approach.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a couple of follow ups to that. First of all, how has this war altered the security architecture in the Persian Gulf? Because the Arab monarchs in the region, they have US bases. Almost all of them have US bases for security reasons. But during the war, the US was not really able to give any security protection or such for any of these countries. So, do you think this war has altered the security calculus of the region?
So I was talking to someone in the UAE in the initial weeks of the war. And the UAE is the country that has the closest ties with Israel.
Yes.
And Emiratis are pretty much upset with the Iranians as well. So I was talking to someone in the UAE, and then this one told me that, throughout these years, the promise was that the Americans will protect you.
Yeah.
Now, the Arabs are protecting the American bases in the region
Right.
because all the bases are coming under attack,
Yeah.
and these Arab monarchies are basically burning through cash because they have to shoot down the Iranian drones and missiles.
Right.
And these missile interceptors are very expensive, and they bought them from the Americans.
Yeah.
And they are using the same interceptors to protect the American bases, which means they are basically spending their own money.
Right.
And they will have to go back to the Americans again to buy them,
Right.
paying the Americans, right?
Mhm.
So, it's interesting because the U.S. security guarantee was the bedrock of the Arab American alliance, which actually goes back to the meeting between the summit between uh, the Saudi founder king Abdulaziz and I think the U.S. president FDR
Right.
back in the 1940s. They met in Egypt's Salt Lake on USS Quincy when the promise was that I give you security, you give me oil.
Yeah.
So this is seen the bedrock of the alliance. And then the UAE would join only in the 1970s because the UAE would be created in the late 1960s. The UAE and all the other countries in early 1980s, you will have the GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council. So now, if you look at the region, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Oman, all of them are more or less American allies.
Yeah.
And Oman has always taken a slightly different position because Oman prefers to have better ties with the Iranians as well. So they were negotiating, basically, they were hosting talks before the war. Oman's foreign minister was involved. He also said that deal was within reach when the Israelis and Americans started the war. But now, these countries, the Persian Gulf monarchies, they face a dilemma.
Right.
So the dilemma is that, yes, they all of them are angry with the Iranians. There's no doubt about it. Especially in Saudi Arabia. I'm talking about the ruling classes. I don't know. I can't speak about the masses, but certainly the ruling classes are angry about the Iranians because 39 days
Yeah.
Iran attacked them.
Yeah.
39 days.
Yeah.
And they had to spend a lot of money, and they also took a lot of hit. Qatar's largest LNG terminal, the gas terminal, was bombed.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia's refinery got bombed. Bahrain's refinery got hit. Kuwait's refinery got hit. Abu Dhabi's multiple oil fields were attacked by the Iranians. And 39 days they were attacked. Not just that. Throughout the 39 days, they were not even able to militarily respond.
Right.
Imagine, that's humiliating,
Yeah.
isn't it? Nobody responded militarily because they knew that if they respond militarily, Iran's retaliation would be much more stronger,
Right.
and they will have to bear with the economic consequences of the retaliation.
Right.
So they had to angrily suffer the pain and then wait silently for a ceasefire to come into force.
Right.
That's humiliating for any sovereign nation.
Yeah.
This is what happened with these countries. And they were angry. They were definitely angry with the Iranians. Understandable. Your country is being bombed, right?
Yeah.
Who can tolerate that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely you can't. But they are definitely angry with the Americans as well.
Right.
I am hosting your bases. You offered me protection.
Yeah.
Hello, where is the protection?
Yeah.
I don't see anything.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So they are definitely angry with the Americans. They are angry with the Iranians. But now, UAE and Saudi, they all say that they wanted to deepen their ties with the United States because especially the Emiratis say that the Iranian attacks will only strengthen their resolve
Right.
to bolster their relationship with the United States and Israel. This is what the Emiratis are saying. It's possible.
Right.
right? I mean, once the dust settles,
Right.
once there is a lasting ceasefire, they might ask these questions and then they might conclude that, okay, even with the United States, it's this bad. So without the United States, it could get even worse,
Yeah.
right? So they might decide to strengthen their relationship, defense partnership with the Americans, especially countries like the UAE and Kuwait. Kuwait can't say no to the United States,
Right.
and Bahrain.
Yeah.
So these three countries, I think, I mean, it's likely that these three countries will basically step up their relationship, their partnership with the United States. But I mean, it's we have to wait and see. But I think it's possible to imagine that countries like Qatar and Oman would decide to have a much more stable relationship with Iran as well,
Right.
particularly Oman, because they know that Iran is not going to go anywhere.
Right.
Iran is going to be there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a powerful country. And if you look at geographically, it's a very powerful country. Iran's power is not coming from its conventional military might. We've been talking about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's coming from its geography.
Yeah.
It's a big country. It's 70
Yes.
times more than Israel, bigger than Israel.
Yes.
It stretches from the Persian Gulf to the Caspian Sea,
Yeah.
from South Asia to Central Asia.
Yes.
It's a big country
Yes.
of 90 million people,
Yeah.
right? The Omanis and the Qataris might decide. I think there is a possibility that they could relook at their position, particularly the Qataris, and would prefer a much more predictable, stable relationship with the Iranians.
Right.
Saudi Arabia remains a mystery to me because there were reports in American press saying that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was pressing Trump to finish the job,
Right.
to go and attack the Iranians, etc., etc. I don't know. I mean, my instincts tell me that these reports were part of some kind of disinformation campaign,
Right.
because this war, prolonged war in Saudi Arabia's neighborhood, is not in Saudi Arabia's interest either,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's likely that MBS could also prefer. I mean, definitely he's not going to break with the Americans.
Yeah.
He will maintain the relationship, but he might also prefer a much more stable relationship with the Iranians.
Right.
So one thing I think is clear: the old idea of GCC is dead.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer there.
Yeah.
So the Persian Gulf countries will face tough questions
Right.
once the war is over, and they will have to address this fundamental question of what they are going to do with Iran.
Right.
The Islamic Republic of Iran is not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So they will have to come up with an answer to that question.
Right. And clearly, beyond Iran, this conflict has spread across the region, be it in Lebanon with
Yeah.
Israel attacking the Hezbollah positions, and in Yemen with Houthi attacks in the Red Sea, and like clearly, like we just mentioned, attacking critical infrastructure across the Persian Gulf. So, how closer are we to this becoming a full blown regional conflict, or are we already there?
I think what happened is a regional war. I remember, I mean, when we write an editorial in the Hindu, we've been writing for, I mean, the standard warning is that if you don't rein in Israel, if you don't address particular concerns, this will escalate into a fully blown regional war.
Right.
And our warnings came true, you know. I mean, you actually witnessed a full blown regional war, because what the Iranians did, they had turned the entire Persian Gulf into a battlefield.
Right.
And then Hezbollah joined the war
Yeah.
on March 2nd. And Israelis started attacking Hezbollah, and they are now, you know, when we talk, the Israelis are carrying out an invasion in southern Lebanon.
Yes.
So the Houthis, they fired a couple of missiles into Israel, but they were not very active. But I think that's part of the larger strategy. People ask me why the Houthis did not join the war. But the question I ask them back is that, I mean, even without the Houthis joining the war, the Iranians managed to survive.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Secondly, Saudi Arabia did not join the war because the Saudis know that the moment they start attacking the Iranians,
Yeah.
if they decide to attack the Iranians, the Houthis will start attacking Saudi Arabia. So it's like playing chess, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have kept someone in Saudi Arabia's backyard, which acts as a constant reminder to Saudi Arabia, because in 2019, the Houthis knocked off half of Saudi Arabia's oil production capacity
Yeah.
for a week.
Yeah.
So they have that capability to do that. It's right across the border.
Right.
So again, the geography supports them.
Mm-hmm.
And if the Houthis shut down Bab el Mandeb, the traffic through the Red Sea, through the Suez Canal, would also come to an end.
Right.
So that will be a double whammy, a double tap strike on the global economy.
Mm-hmm.
So the Iranians or the Houthis, they decide to basically wait on the wings,
Right.
looking at what is happening. So if Trump had threatened to erase Iranian civilization, etc., etc. Okay.
Yeah.
But if he was going to escalate the war to the next stage, it was possible that the Houthis would also escalate it.
Right.
So likewise, Iran has allies in Iraq,
Mm-hmm.
especially Hashad al-Shabi.
Yeah.
So Hashad al-Shabi, they carried out in the initial days of the war, they carried out sustained attacks on Western bases, and almost all the NATO forces, except a few American troops, had already left Iraq
Right.
because of their attack. So, the Iranian allies were either directly active or they were used as pressure points in this war.
Right.
You look at Iraq, you look at Yemen, you look at Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
Lebanon, Hezbollah, yes, Hezbollah started attacking Israel because Lebanon is just across the border.
Yeah.
Across northern Israel, you have southern Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
That's where Hezbollah is operating.
Yeah.
And when the Israelis keep attacking Iran, Hezbollah actually got them to stay engaged in a land war. And Hezbollah is, they are basically holding the ground in southern Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
The Israelis have already said that they wanted to capture the whole of southern Lebanon, and a war is grinding on.
Mm-hmm.
A grueling war is grinding on in this region. So more or less, this has already become kind of a regional war.
Right.
But you have a ceasefire now between the Americans and the Iranians,
Yes.
but the war in Lebanon is still continuing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So now getting to Strait of Hormuz, you've mentioned quite a bit about Strait of Hormuz in our conversation, but the disruptions in this place has been a very critical aspect of this conflict. So what has been the economic implication for this, and how has this affected the global energy market? Are we looking at a more long-standing economic impact because of this?
So on February 28th, the crude oil price in the international market was, I think, 75 or something, less than 80 anyway. Today, it's 98.
Right.
Yesterday, it was 100. And at the peak of the war, when the Israelis bombed South Pars gas field, the Iranians responded by attacking energy facilities in 3 Arab countries,
Mm-hmm.
Qatar, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia. Then crude prices hit 110 a barrel.
Right.
So this tells us that prices are going to stay high,
Yeah.
right? And now you have a ceasefire,
Mm-hmm.
but still it is 98. It is basically hovering around 100,
Right.
which means we all are going to take some pain.
Mm-hmm.
In India, the state-run oil companies haven't increased the prices because we know the reason.
Right.
Assembly elections are over.
Yeah. Yeah.
In Kerala, it's over, but Tamil Nadu, West Bengal are important states
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
BJP as well. Once the elections are over, prices are going to go up.
Right.
And prices are going to go up steeply. Mark my word.
Right.
Because you look at what Nayara did. Nayara has increased. It's a private
Yes.
pump,
Yeah.
private company. They have increased the petrol price by 5 rupees a liter.
Mm-hmm.
That's a steep price. That's
Yes.
not 1 rupee,
Yes.
2 rupee.
Yes.
So the state-owned companies are going to do the same thing once the war is over.
Yeah.
So we all are going to suffer because of the war launched by Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Both are India's friends, by the way. They brought the war to India's neighborhood.
Yeah.
And we are a major economy, right?
Yes.
So the energy shock, I think, is going to stay
Mm-hmm.
unless there is an agreement between these two. Then the prices are likely to go down. But still, you look at the impact this war has already caused.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just energy prices. Fertilizer prices are also growing.
Yes.
And high fertilizer price means food prices will go up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gas prices will go up. We
Yeah.
are already rationing cooking gas in India,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And you go to a restaurant, you will see that they have cut down the menu
Yes.
because of LPG shortage.
Yeah.
That's what most of these people are telling us. And that also means job losses. So energy crisis is one part. Fertilizer prices will go up. That means food prices will go up.
Right.
So if the diesel prices and fertilizer prices are going up, that will have a direct implication on food price inflation.
Right.
which means the commoners are going to get affected, not only in India, but across the world. And then if you look at the Persian Gulf countries, most of these countries said that their energy facilities took major damages because of the Iranian attack. And Qatar says it will take years for them to restore the pre-war production, which means supply is also going to get affected, in the short term. So that will also have an impact on the prices. So you have the energy shock, you have growing prices, and you will also have major impact on the global economy. So this was unwarranted, right? I mean, it's all because of the war, and you started the war unnecessarily. So I think the impact on the global economy is going to stay. So even if there is an agreement, and imagine if there is no agreement, if Trump returns to war, then if it escalates to the next level, I hope it doesn't. But if that happens, if the prices are going to go, oil prices are going to go up, then we are going to fall into recession, the global economy. So, I mean, this will have lasting implications.
Right. Now let's talk about the April 8th ceasefire. So what happened there? Who blinked first?
I think Trump blinked first.
Right.
I mean, you look at all you have to do is to look at his Truth Social posts. In March 2nd week, he said, open the strait or I am going to hit you 20 times harder. The Iranians did not open the strait. On March 21st, he said, you have 48 hours, open the strait, or I am going to destroy all your power plants. The Iranians did not blink. 48 hours later, he said, I am extending this by 5 days. I am in touch with the Iranians. We are having great talks. We might have a deal. Nobody knows. Who knows? So 5 days. And within 5 days, the strait will be opened. 5 days were over. The Iranians did not open the strait. And then he said he is extending his deadline by 10 days. And then he also said that they were in touch with the Iranians wanted the deal. And the 10-day deadline was also over. They didn't open the strait. He extended his deadline by one more day. Nothing happened. So that day was April 7th and April 8th our time. April 7th evening his time. But the Iranians still did not budge. And then, of course, mediation process was happening because the United States had submitted a 15-point proposal through the Pakistanis. The Pakistani foreign minister, Shakdar, had confirmed it, that they had gave the proposal. Trump said that he was in talks with the Iranians, but the Iranians said no. We received a proposal, but we were not in talks with them. It's not a negotiation. This is what the Iranian position was. So what we saw was that the same American president who demanded unconditional surrender from the Iranians sent a ceasefire proposal, exchanged his deadlines multiple times, his ultimatums multiple times, and then he announced a ceasefire on April 8th. When he announced the ceasefire, he said that the ceasefire would be contingent on Iran fully and immediately reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Today is what? April 14th. The Strait of Hormuz still is not open, but the ceasefire holds. Right? So what does it tell us? So who wants a deal so badly? I think the Americans want a deal. So yes, Trump says that he has met all his objectives. He destroyed everything. Fine, that's okay. But still, all you have to do is to take a step closer and look at what the ground reality is. We understand that Iran stands firm. Of course, Iran got pounded. Iran got massively bombed. There's no doubt about it. It will have massive economic impact on Iran. They will take years to recover. All those problems are there, but they survived. They are standing firm. That means the United States doesn't have any easy option. Because they can't continue to attack them expecting a different result, right? I mean, doing the same thing again and again, expecting a different result is not a rational thing at all. So then the United States, what they are doing now is basically they say that, okay, we have met our military objective, but we also have to meet our political objectives. And to meet our political objectives, we need to cut a deal with the Iranians, so we are ready to cut a deal with the Iranians. So that's what Trump is trying to do. So I think he blinked first.
Right.
He announced the ceasefire, and it's interesting that the ceasefire is still holding.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Um, and following the ceasefire, Pakistan held marathon talks in Islamabad
That's right. Yeah.
on April 11th with the JD ones involved in the conversation, but nothing seems to have come out of those talks. So,
Yeah.
what's really going on in these negotiations?
Yeah, and it's interesting that JD Vance went to Islamabad. That's
Yeah.
another interesting point because the Americans did go to Pakistan. The Iranians didn't go to Canada.
Yeah.
The Iranians didn't go to Mexico.
Yes.
The Americans came to Iran's neighborhood,
Yes.
which also tells us who wants the deal.
Yeah.
And who came? JD Vance came.
Yeah.
He's the vice president.
Yes.
Why JD Vance? That's an interesting question. Because in June 2025 and also in Jan 2026, the Iranians held multiple rounds of talks with, no surprise, Steve Witkoff,
Right.
who's Trump's real estate buddy.
Yeah.
He's also his special envoy,
Yes.
the highly respectable special envoy to the Middle East. And Jared Kushner.
Yeah.
Jared Kushner is the president's son-in-law.
Yes.
So the Iranians held multiple rounds of talks in 2025 and 2026, and on both occasions, the Americans bombed the table. In 2025, the Israelis started the war while the talks were still on. I still remember June 15th, the Americans and the Iranians were supposed to hold the sixth round of talks, and on June 12th, the Israelis started bombing.
Right.
And here, they held multiple rounds of talks in Oman, in Muscat, as well as in Vienna. And on February 28th, the Americans and the Israelis started bombing. After Oman foreign minister said, he was in Washington, he said that a deal was within reach.
Right.
But then the bombing campaign started. So the Iranians clearly said that we want somebody else, not just Kushner and Witkoff. And Trump agreed to this.
Right.
He realized that the Iranians were really pissed. They didn't want to talk to only Witkoff and Kushner. So he sent his vice president. So vice president coming to Islamabad itself was a major thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And yes, there was no breakthrough. So I am a bit optimistic. I'm generally a cynic. But here, when I look at what happened in Islamabad, I would argue that yes, the Islamabad talks did not lead to a breakthrough. They failed to reach a breakthrough.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that the entire diplomatic process has collapsed.
Right.
Why? The Americans have a 15-point proposal. The Iranians have apparently they have a 10-point proposal.
Right.
The challenge here is to find common ground.
Right.
They haven't found common ground. Okay. So some of the American proposals are maximalist demands. I don't think no Iranian leader can accept that.
Yeah.
But still, I think if they continue the talks, apparently they are continuing talks. If they continue talks, it's possible to reach some kind of a compromise formula. For example, the American media report that the United States had proposed a 20-year enrichment moratorium. So that is a step down from the earlier position of the United States, saying that no enrichment at all. So they now say that a 20-year moratorium. And the Iranians have responded saying that they would accept a 5-year moratorium. That is also a step down because the Iranians had earlier said that no, we won't accept any control, any moratorium on enrichment. So the question is whether you can reduce this further and agree on maybe 10 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that is up to the negotiators in the next level, right? And Iran has clearly no intention to make any concessions on their missile defense program. But I think Strait of Hormuz as part of some kind of final agreement, because Iran has proved the point.
Yes.
The point is that if you attack me again, I'm going to shut Strait of Hormuz,
Yes.
enhancing your economic pain. I have the capability to do that.
Yeah.
So this is my deterrence. So you better not attack me next time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they made the point.
Yeah.
So it's possible that the Iranians might make concessions over the hold of the Strait of Hormuz as well, right? So I'm just speculating here, just analyzing here. So my point is that I think the United States wants a deal. I don't think Trump wants to go back to war.
Right.
Okay, he makes all kind of noises. I may be wrong, but this is just an assessment. So, so there is scope for both sides to continue the diplomatic process and find common ground. And there are areas where both sides can make concessions as well. For example, the nuclear front, the Iranians might be willing to make concessions. But I think you will have to give them security guarantees.
Right.
You will have to convince the Iranians that you make a deal now and you are not going to face any more attack.
Right.
Which also means that you need to rein in Israel. Israel is the real rogue player here.
Right.
You just look at how the ceasefire evolved.
Yeah.
On April 7th, they announced the ceasefire. The Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said that the ceasefire will come into force on all all fronts, including Lebanon.
Yeah.
And for 24 hours, the Americans were okay with Shehbaz Sharif's proposal. They never objected to his proposal.
Yeah.
And then suddenly the Israelis saw an opportunity. They say that, okay, oh, so the ceasefire has to come into force in Lebanon as well.
Yeah.
But Lebanon is my forte.
Yeah.
If you want a ceasefire in Lebanon, I'm not going to give you that.
Yeah.
And then Netanyahu he stepped up bombing. On
Yes.
a single day, they killed 200 people in
Yes.
Lebanon, right?
Yes.
At least 200 people. So that was a kind of a message from Netanyahu that here in Lebanon, it's me who take the call, not you.
Right.
So the real question is that you need to rein in Israel as well for peace. Otherwise, Israel can act like this. Okay, Israel has respected the ceasefire on Iran. They haven't bombed Iran. The Iranians have also done that. They haven't bombed Israel since the ceasefire came into force. But Iran hasn't eased its chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz because that was one of the conditions of the ceasefire.
Yeah.
They still control Strait of Hormuz. Israel was supposed to end bombing of Lebanon. They continued to bomb Lebanon. Okay. So there were violations on both sides, you can argue, but still the ceasefire is holding, which tells us that at least the United States and Iran are interested to stay engaged diplomatically and continue the process.
Right.
Okay, in Islamabad, they didn't reach any breakthrough, but that doesn't mean that the diplomatic process has collapsed.
Right. So I think we have to wait until April 22nd for the temporary ceasefire to expire to see what happens further, like you mentioned. But yes, we'll see you again for the next episode. Thank you so much,
Sure.
Rajana.
Thank you very much.
That was a detailed look at the conflict that is still unfolding and one that carries consequences far beyond the region. As the temporary ceasefire edges closer to expiry, the gap between the United States and Iran remains wide, and the risk of renewed escalation is very real. Whether this conflict moves towards a broader regional war, a prolonged standoff, or an eventual return to diplomacy will depend on decisions being made right now as we speak. We will have to wait and see what unfolds in this ongoing conflict. Until then, that's it for today's episode here at Global Faultlines. If you have any feedback or suggestions, write to us at podcasts@thehindu.co.in. Thanks for tuning in.